Good? All right. Welcome to this Village Board work session. It is Monday, February 3rd. It is 6:02 p.m. We're in the Village Hall boardroom. Megan, can you go ahead and take roll call?
Trustee Mishler?
Here.
Trustee Bonaski?
Good evening.
Trustee Briggs?
Here.
Trustee Wojka?
Here. Okay. Yeah, don't need to do the land acknowledgement. I know. So this evening we have Leanna Pasante. She is our student, what is her title? Student advisor from Fairport High School. So thanks for being here, Leanna. Please make sure if you have anything to add to our conversation, just, stick a hand up if I don't see you. So moving into new business, number one, the Main Street.
Your land acknowledgement.
Oh, we're gonna do the land acknowledgement. Well, we can skip it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay, thank you. So we're gonna talk about the Main Streetscape update, and can I have a motion? Do I have to do that, or no? No?
No, you want to do a motion for
Oh,
that. You're
perfect.
not taking any legislative action on this issue.
Outstanding.
But you're on point. You're doing good.
I'm trying
You're
to,
good.
get it done. There's no one staring at me, so it's nice. All right, so what is our update?
All right. So thank you, Deputy Wojka. So some of this stuff is on the agenda. It's just good to catch up on this, and also it's good for the public to hear some of these updates. So that's why some of these are on the agenda a little bit. But the Main Streetscape update, we finally, after a lot of facilitation, when the bids were finally released to the public approximately a week ago, early last week. And so they'll be out for approximately 3 weeks, which is required by our DOT contract. And we hope to have those back early this month or mid this month. And then the board, should they be favorable bids and they all check out, to be able to adopt or award a bid at our work session. If we can do something before that, or if we need to, based on timing, I think we're open to that. But I think the end date is like maybe a Thursday or Friday, and we have a quick turnaround to review everything and then make a recommendation to the village board at the work session for those. So we'll see how that all works out. But this is a really big milestone for us. We were really hitting the back end of when we wanted to do this. We had desires of getting these out anywhere between mid-December and mid-January. They matter in a project like this when you have a project that is going to take the entire construction team from the middle or from the beginning of the construction season to the end of the construction season to do. They're really important you get these out, because otherwise bidders or potential contractors start filling up their schedules and hiring the crew that's going to meet their construction projects that they bid on and have been awarded. So the longer you wait, A, they get more expensive, and B, they have to start, contractors have to start building into their schedule and so forth. So I'm really glad that this is moving forward and taking place. We still anticipate a roughly April 1 to April 15th start date. I assume the contractor is going to want to start as soon as possible on the project. But going through the milestones of a project regulation, a lot of signing off by a lot of different agencies, those types of things that had to happen to make this work. But we're finally at the finish line. This is a really good, positive thing, 20 years in the making. So I think the public should really be happy about getting a brand new infrastructure and a brand new, beautiful downtown that should be done by the end of late fall in 2025. So, board, have any questions about the process, what's going on,
Yeah, she just.
how that's going to look?
I got two. Do we have like a date that we know that we're like the due date for the bids?
Yep. Yeah, they're being opened up on the 20th at 1 o'clock.
Okay. How concerned are we about getting that grant money from the federal government?
I'm not concerned right now. But since you worded it the way you worded it, now I'm concerned.
I'm sorry.
Because now that you're bringing it up, now I'm concerned. So thanks a lot. I'm not concerned right now. It was one of the things when we saw some of the money from the federal government being held up. Was one of the first things we thought about.
Yeah.
We did reach out to GTC. I haven't heard back from them since they're managing our grant on behalf of the federal government.
Okay.
Most of that has been And some of that stopped, the funding that had been froze for a while has been since released, so I'm not too concerned with it. And we don't have any really significant CDBG projects in the village anymore. CDBG's community development block grants are federal pass-through money that are utilized to do programming and infrastructure improvements to uplift parts of a community or entire communities that are in certain economic thresholds. Our last area, even as up to last year, was in the Summit area and some of the roads northeast of there and some of the neighborhoods. Those are no longer viable anymore. When I first came here, the entire northwest quadrant, really above Parish Street, Parse was fully in a CDBG eligible project. So we've been utilizing those funds for years to do capital work over there and streets and storms and that type of thing. And that's no longer eligible either. So good and bad thing.
Yeah, so, sort of like good news, bad news.
Correct.
All right.
Brian, you're still waiting to hear back from GTC?
I have not heard from them, but I'm not real concerned with being able to have this, not to mention the TAP transportation bill was probably authorized 4 years ago, so I think that money is probably sitting in a reserve somewhere as it's impacted statewide or nationwide.
Brian, you were really good about constantly keeping the board up to speed on and asking opinions and things like that. Before the bid went out, is there access to the actual final draft? I mean, I know we have refined it many times over the last.
The entire bid
Can you
documents,
access that?
everything is, I believe it's on our website, it's on
Okay.
all our social media accounts.
Okay.
It's in Rochester, the Builders Exchange. It's almost everywhere. It's in the New York State contract portal that everybody can access.
Okay.
And we put it all on our social media sites. People can look at it anywhere they want.
Okay. And they can pull it right up.
Yep, it's in our digital online code system, our e-code system. It's there as well under miscellaneous documents.
Okay.
It's all over.
And then
It's just a huge document. It's something like 30 gigs. It's with all the plans and
ginormous,
yeah, it's significant.
And then you're meeting with the merchants on the 19th. Will you just review that, or what is?
We're there to ask questions. I mean, the purpose, I think, is just to kind of keep them updated on what's going on, what are the timing, what do we know to that point in time. So we'll share everything we can at that point in time, what we have, they can have, and go from there. It's just the way the timing's working with the bids and how it works. But even that, we need a chance to award the bid, meet with the contractor, have pre-bid meetings, talk about some of the challenges, talk about festivals, talk about how they're going to mobilize. Will they stage the project? Will they do a carte blanche, like all sidewalks in one day, all trees in one day? You know what I'm talking about? So those are all things we can't dictate, but we can have a good casual conversation with them about, impacts. If best case scenario and all things are equal, can we do this, and this? So we just need to wait for that time where we know who the award will go to, and then we'll start those conversations immediately with the contractor.
Tracy, you got anything? No, I'm good. Good? Anyone else? Anything? You guys hit all the stuff I was going to ask, so we're going to go ahead and move on.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Do we feel as a board, or and Brian, your opinion on this would, that we should brainstorm different ways to? I remember when we had the bridge project, we were really proactive about brainstorming ways to alleviate disruption to the businesses. I don't know if on the management side of things, like what has sort of been brainstormed already, or what are some strategies that we have in place or think about using that? I mean, we certainly have had lots of practice with
Yep.
construction.
Yep. So as far as the updates and what's going to happen with the construction, I think we got a good process of putting out a weekly report to the Merchants Association, and they're going to use their contact list and distribution list of their members and so forth to get that information out there. Plus, we'll use all our outlets as well. And I think it's going to work out really well. Plus, we're on site every single day. It's our community. It's 10
Yeah.
feet outside of our front doors. I'm not so concerned with that. When you look at, with the Lift Bridge, the Lift Bridge project, about mitigating impacts, right? I mean, there's going to be impacts. You can't go under construction with something and not have some impacts. We'll try to manage those and mitigate those to the best of our ability, and we'll collaborate where we can. I was just tonight meeting with the new executive director for OSED again. We were chatting, and she wanted to get together and kind of talk about what are some ways that we can help maybe market some of this stuff with them collaboratively. I believe the Merchants Association's got a committee and has been working on some opportunities to do some of this and keep members afloat and abreast and kind of maximize probably not the best shopping and going out season. I still think that due to the makeup of the businesses that we have in the community, they're not like you go down the street and just kind of do browsing. Those are your spots, those are your bars, those are your restaurants, those are your places of entertainment. I think people will still do that. And the contractors can be well aware. I mean, hey, people still have to live and breathe and work and thrive in this construction environment. So making sure that things are kept up, tidy, clean, good communication, kept up where there's still active people walking in and out of the construction zone, right? You're not going to shut down all of Main Street to pedestrian and other types of traffic for the season. So how do you get that to continue to flow?
Right.
We've done that in other communities, and while it's it doesn't look and feel the same, everything's open. You can still walk, you can still do certain things.
Okay.
So I feel confident we'll be able to find a happy medium to make this work.
I mean, the flip side of this is that there's a lot more, there's additional people, if you will, coming into our community who are working on the project, right? I mean, there's economic potential there in terms of people needing lunch and, right, that kind of thing. So kind of catering to the groups that are doing all the work would be
Right.
A wise idea as well.
Right. I agree.
Okay.
Trustee Briggs?
I was thinking at the last meeting, we were talking about zoning and parking. It's, when they did the parking study, the village as a whole, all, 3/4 of a mile of the village has parking. It's just not utilized. The north is at, 110, 120%, while the south isn't. So somehow do a deliberate campaign when we're doing all of this communication about utilizing the other parking lots and really saying that we're, but a conscious effort of park here, walk there. The whole purpose of us putting in gorgeous sidewalks is that you can park at one end of the town and walk to the other, but have an organized campaign to get people parking on the south and using the whole village.
I agree, and you're exactly correct. I mean, we've been saying that all along, but to have an organized campaign that really pushes it out there and really kind of say, hey, you can park right now where we're at tonight. We can all walk up to the cannery and be there in 5 or 6 minutes, right? It's not a big deal, but it's just one of those conscious things. I don't want to park there. I want to park there and get out and do my thing. But you can do that, and there will be extra parking here. And while over there, it's at
But we
max.
have 6 months of a captive audience to really hammer home,
I agree.
walkability and why we're doing this and the advantages, and maybe get the merchants on board and say, hey, park up here, and really try to utilize all of the village parking.
That's a good idea.
deliberately.
I agree.
Just wanted to add that.
No, it's good.
No,
It's
I think-
potential.
It needs to happen regardless of the project, just educating
It's not
people
happening
to.
organically
Yeah.
over the last couple of years, so I think we just need to put a deliberate push behind it and really sell it. And I think it'll help everybody with parking and help the merchants because they're gonna have gorgeous sidewalks end to end.
I agree. We'll look into that. It's a good idea.
That'd be perfect timing.
Yeah.
All right, anything else? Leanna, you got anything? We all good? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, moving on to number 2, 25-26 budget forecast and discussion.
All right.
ready?
So this is the fun stuff. So as you all know, we're knee deep into preparing the fiscal year 25-26 proposed budget. As we go through that, departmental budgets were due today. Megan and I have scheduled, 48 meetings or something between now and the end of March to kind of go through this. But, what we're seeing is things that we talked about last year, and it's really coming to materialize this year as we're starting to get some different numbers with revenues and sales tax and so forth, that we are looking at a challenging year, something that we haven't really experienced in a long time. Again, this is kind of also for the public's knowledge as well, but we, sales tax has been something that it's 25% roughly, give or take a year, of our revenue stream. 50% of that's property taxes, and the other 25% it's kind of your permits and fees and clerks' fees and things like that really don't change a whole lot, right? They pretty much all stay in the ballpark, and outside of a significant fee adjustment, they're pretty much, you can rely on them. But sales tax is one of those things you can't really control. It's market driven, it's consumer confidence, it's all those types of things that drive sales tax. Sales tax is generally something that you choose to purchase, you choose to do something, discretionary spending, those types of things. So that we're seeing as being fairly flat moving forward. So when you're talking about in generalities, 100% of your expenditures typically go up every single year to some degree, right? There's always an inflation, everything goes up a point or two, whatever the case may be. But when you're talking about $7 million of expenditures going up a point or two, when only 25% of your revenues go up a point or two, you can see that imbalance, right? So you're always cutting expenses, right, or trying to sharpen your pencil in order to meet that inequity in between the revenue expense, that delta. So we're not going to be able to really rely on an increased sales tax to say, hey, extra sales tax is going to be an extra $80,000 this year. That's going to really take care of some of the operating adjustments that happen and do that. So that's somewhat of just a factor we're dealing with. This is not unique to Fairport. We've been doing kind of a Google search of really municipalities across the state. Everyone is dealing with the same message I'm about to provide to you guys. We're not in a unique circumstance. But across the state, ERS, which is Employee Retirement System, and PFRS, which is Police and Fire Retirement System, all controlled by the state. And we have employees in both of those retirement systems, and they're mandated by New York State law. All of that went up substantially this year. We get those rates provided to us, and you take those rates, times that by the salary or wages of your entire staff, and that's how you get your retirement contribution. We're looking at a significant increase this year, literally over 6 figures to meet that obligation. And that's truly just going from one year to the next type of thing. We're also looking at significant healthcare cost increases. This is something everyone talks about all the time. We're just really seeing a significant push. Even everything that the village does in partnership with the Finger Lakes Municipal Health Insurance Trust, which is a consortium in which we purchase power, kind of like the Costco of health insurance, is right. Understanding your liabilities, understanding your people, understanding how much profit and loss is being done, understanding, if I'm purchasing in a custom health insurance plan, something that really the membership in the trust, right, the employees, the belly buttons aren't utilizing, we'll get rid of that and add some better coverage over here for whatever that might be. So we really have a great thing, and we really have a lot of analytics and data to really look at what's being done and so forth. But, this past year we had roughly a 15% increase. We're looking at another 12.5% next year. Yeah, that's a 6-figure jump in just health insurance costs going from a December 31 to January 1 time frame. So you start looking at things that, and then just your typical wage increases and those types of things that are really small in nature, nothing extravagant, but walking in before you even hit an operating budget, right, of the 1,000 line items at $225,000, something you got to make up, and you don't have any revenue that's increasing with that, that's significant. I mean, as you guys know and have been trained, about $50,000 is roughly a 2% increase in the tax levy, right? So those two numbers alone give you 8 to 10%-ish already by themselves, right, before you do anything else, hitting the operating budget, hitting capital, doing small little things that you want to do. And we have very confidently massaged these budget numbers significantly through the years. There's really little to, hey, well, if this comes up, we'll be able to kind of do this. We even got to the point, and this is the first year of all things, we had our first winter, I think, in 5 years. We've gotten to the point where, we're always kind of subsidizing the next year's budget by stuff we didn't do in the wintertime, like overtime and salt procurement and all these other types of things. Well, we're doing it now. And like God intended to, it only snows on weekends or nights when you got to call in overtime. That's really been the case this year. And it's just the way it works out, right? So, the Public Works Director and I had a conversation about this the other day. He goes, Brian, it's going to snow, but it's going to snow again after dark, right? And we're really hitting our numbers, and we're already just starting February for hitting our threshold of where we're going to be. So, again, these are just things that happen, but we've been used to counting on that. I think we might have, or I might have even reduced that last year coming into this year for some of those numbers, because they just say the new normal was a little warmer winter, not getting as much snow, that type of thing. So what I'm really want to talk to you guys about is, kind of your look and feel for this, but I think it's a realistic expectation to see a 10 to 15% tax levy increase with this budget. We are going to look at everything in here and see what we can do. I don't think that any permit fee or anything that we can turn from a revenue source outside of the tax levy and a tax increase, we're going to look at. So you may see, hey, there's some recommendations or options to consider for paid parking. Maybe there's options for increased fees in certain areas, right? We're going to look at all of that and make adjustments so that the last thing that we do is the recommendation of a tax increase, which nobody wants to do. I just read the Batavian the other day for the city of Batavia. They literally had the same article and the same message that I'm delivering to you now. I even sent it to staff. I'm like, it's almost like they were eavesdropping on our internal conversations here about what's going on. But that's what we're seeing. I think, pardon me, I think one of the saving grace things is the village and the board has been really great at financial forecasting. We expected some of this, but also with this, just because you're having a challenging fiscal year, which you're always going to have. You're going to have your ups and downs and so forth. We're still going to be doing a lot of work. It's not like saying, okay, because we're having a challenging budget year that, everything stops, you don't really get anything for it. We're doing a $6 million streetscape project. You're doing 2 full street sewer and road pavement rebuilds with Briggs and Railroad. You're doing probably another 10 streets of oil and stone. You'll probably do another 3 or 4 streets of just general pavement. You're still going to be doing, I don't plan on cutting, I don't ever make recommendations really to cut capital or push it off because it doesn't go away. It just compounds on itself. So you can sit there and say for this year, oh, fine, we won't do these 4 things, and it drops down to $200,000 right out of the budget, but those are still there next year. So now instead of having a $200,000 budget gap, you have a $400,000 budget gap next year. It doesn't go away, right? It just makes you feel good for this year and kick the can down the road. The capital work we're doing is not like, let's go paint everything gold and make it nice and everything else. These are necessary capital infrastructure improvements to do basic infrastructure upkeep and maintenance, right? So it'd be different if we were out doing a park and we're putting in all new stuff for $200,000 and new tilt-a-whirls and whatever the case may be. That's just not what's in or we're proposing for the budget, right? So, nevertheless, I just think it's important that the board hears this and understands kind of what's happening within the financial drivers for this, what we're seeing, and a lot of them are based on those 2 variable issues. Our budget's not real complicated. The electric budget even went up between this year and next year, over 10% compound, just for typical costs, procurement costs alone, which we haven't got into in this conversation yet, but everything else that's in the budget is not going to stay flat, right? Another big driver of ours is, while there's signs of, interest rates and stuff going down, well, that's a positive thing when you borrow, it's a negative when you invest, right? So our NICLAS savings and the things that we do for reserves and relying on that compound interest to either uplift the reserves or uplift the general fund for money that's not being used with cash flow. We're also seeing kind of a flattening out and a dipping of that as well. And those are significant. We had an $80,000 year last year or something. It was high. I mean, $80,000 just to come up with something like that for cash flow, just good cash flow management is pretty good. And when you look at those numbers, are they a lot? No, but when you're talking about a $7 million general fund, it's a very, very small general fund, right? It's not a big number. So small numbers add up in a small budget like this. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that, to be able to understand that and know what's coming. We don't want to deliver something to you that you're going to be shocked at, but it is something that is necessary. I think it's unavoidable. I generally don't really give a lot of comments about budgets prior to them being delivered, but I don't really see a lot of way around this. We've been looking at this for quite some time, talking about it. I think I've met with some of you individually about this already. It's just one of those things that we're gonna have to kind of go through and do. We will look at every opportunity to look at different programming, different options for revenue increases in generation. But at the end of the day, they'll help, but they're not going to take care of, the majority of what needs to happen here. We're probably looking at, another 10 or 12% next year. Who knows what's going to happen with the ERS rates. I would love to get an understanding of those better. You would think the market's doing really, really well. That should translate into market performance for the retirement funds that the state manages, but it goes into other factors associated with how many employees will be retiring in a given year through actuaries. And then, is there enough cash flow to meet that demand, even though maybe the markets are doing well and the funds are doing well? So there's a lot that goes into that. It would be very interesting to do, but we weren't expecting some of the increases that we saw comes from the state for things like that when you see the markets doing really well. Generally, when there's a slump and you see that happening, it sustains itself for a year, it's coming for an adjustment within a year or two of the state to make up that difference in the interest that they didn't make. But this year, it's not really happening that way. So, is there any questions or things you want to talk about, or please?
At the beginning of your talk, you said revenue was sales tax and property tax. What percentage of our budget is that?
Of the revenues, without getting into buckets, the 25% roughly of our budget is made up of sales tax, which is a significant revenue. 50%. Go ahead. Sorry, please.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
25.
50% approximately is funded by property taxes, real property taxes. And then the other 25% is things that, your basic, typical local government fees, whether it be docking fees, mooring fees, clerk fees, notary fees, building department fees, zoning applications, things like that. They don't fluctuate a whole lot. They're fairly stagnant in nature. We don't really generally move those numbers a lot. Even if we have a good year, we just had a good year. Thanks for the extra few bucks here and there. And we don't say, we can count on that extra $3,000 next year. We don't. We always kind of keep it flat. You're always going to have your ebbs and flows in types of fees like that. So we just kind of keep them consistent and constant.
Any federal or state aid?
As of right now, no. We have, outside of the TAP grant that's coming in, we get our state aid from the state, right? That comes in every year. Sorry, state aid. We have those. We got our CHIPS allocation. Those are still high. I think we're probably going to receive, which is a good thing, roughly about $800,000 in extra state aid associated with street repair through the Pave New York program, CHIPS program, that type of thing. So that's great. Those are going to be utilized heavily with some of our street maintenance this year, storm sewer work in the southeast part of the village for all the work that has to be done over there. I don't know how long that's going to last and stay, but it is in the, when I read through the governor's budget, it is in their proposal for their April 1 budget for the state, so that's good. The state's still looking at maybe even another increase into AIM funding, the Aided Municipalities funding. I'm sure they're talking about that right now at NICOM, or were today. That'd be nice to see, but you never know what's going to happen with that before our budget's presented to you. So and it's de minimis, correct? It's $20,000 or maybe more, whatever. Well, I take it, sure. I'd bend over now for a broken nickel, but it doesn't change a lot, right? It doesn't do big numbers. And the big thing with any type of state aid or revenue or any type of grants, when you talk about things like this, they need to be our expenses that are built into the budget. They're structured, meaning they live into perpetuity. They don't just, I have a big expense this year, and then next year it falls off and that expense is no longer there. Anything that is not a constant has been taken out of our operating budget to take that uncertainty out and that inability to forecast appropriately, right? And that stuff's been put into capital and moved away from that. I mean, anything that we can't scrutinize and count on, or at least be able to live within, doesn't live there because of that. Otherwise, you just never know. I mean, this year, everything's really great. We keep our spending plan up. Then next year, that $100,000 infusion of wherever that was going to come from doesn't come. Then what do? Right? You're in a significant problem. That's not a proper way to forecast and do good budgeting. So, Megan and I are really big on that. We don't do any of those types of things. One-time revenues never get built into the operating budget because it just builds you a hole for the following year. And then we have to have a conversation like this again. It's not fun. So, did that answer your question, Trustee Briggs? Okay.
All right. Emily or Adam, either of you have anything?
The sales tax thing really confused me, only because I feel like when you think about our small little village, we've had so much economic development, and when you compare what seemingly feels like we're actually creating a lot more business, like it feels like sales tax should be in our community should be increasing.
So I can answer that.
So,
Yep.
but it's not just our community, it's Monroe County.
Correct.
So Monroe County is what distributes, correct? And because I had to figure this out, I was like, before the meeting, I was like, what's going on? Like, sales tax is down? That doesn't make any sense. Our community is doing our little village is doing really well, but I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. When you look at the broader county, because there's a list of all of the counties in New York State, and they document increase or decrease of sales tax by quarter, correct? And
Yes, we do.
I think I saw that the Monroe County sales tax has decreased like 2.something%, 2.4 maybe percent.
So yeah, so the thing is, are we meeting? So it's how we use terminology, but are we meeting our projection? Yes, right. But our projection was a de minimis 1% over the previous year's budget. I think we'll hit that maybe, or be in the ballpark, or maybe a little less. But the fact is, the sales tax we say is down. We've been so used to riding this wave of a 3 or 4% increase every single year. When you're talking about a $2.5 million revenue that goes up 3 or 4% a year, it's something, right? It's something to this village, and it actually makes up for those known increases in costs that happen from an annual budget to the next annual budget, right? They're norms. And so you get kind of used to that and settling in, and you can do other things. We're not seeing, again, the revenue associated with sales tax alone is not growing at a pace that's meeting the expectation of the expenditure pace associated with just, again, increased procurement. Correct. Everything going up, inflation. The cost of everything you can imagine has never been higher than it is today in the history of the U.S. government. Goods and services are higher now than ever. The costs are just really extreme, and it's not just a commodity-driven thing where it's only hitting like certain metals or certain plastics, or everything it touches has been impacted to a degree, and that's a really, really hard thing to put your hand around, right? And then again, sales tax isn't just something where you would think that basic sales tax understanding is, if you have the same population and everybody's still in the workforce and unemployment's down, that means everybody's getting a paycheck, right? Everybody has bills, and then every paycheck goes up 2% a year, right, through a COLA raise or an employer or whatever. So everything should really go up to 2%. Well, what are those wages? What are those jobs? That's why it matters what jobs you bring in. You can have everybody employed, but are they employed at six-figure jobs in technical fields? Are they employed at more retail-related jobs, right? In a smaller salary ratio, right? Those things really matter when you're talking about economic development, how you recruit, what you recruit. You can have places that, everybody's working, but again, you can only spend so much disposable income. So if I'm only making $20,000 a year, right, I'm covering all my bills first, so now I only have $3,000 to go spend on sales tax related things, so commodities and Walmarts and the grocery stores and whatever else I'm going to go to, bars, restaurants, those types of things, right? And then also you just hit certain saturation parts. If your community is only so big, the population isn't growing, housing stock's not getting a whole lot bigger every year, right? At some point, even with all the money that people are making at their jobs and then they're spending their portion of disposable income that converts to sales tax, there becomes a point where if that's not growing, but the expenses associated with life are growing, right? Monroe County is not getting 100,000 more people a year, that sales tax hits a saturation point, hits a threshold, a ceiling, right? And that's kind of what you're seeing, you're experiencing a little bit. Okay? I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this.
Yeah.
You know, a big thing that, you know, for sales tax is automotive sales and car sales. Those are down. It's because they cost, a normal car costs $60,000, no matter what you buy anymore. People aren't just going out and just buying that new car all the time, right? It's a very, very expensive thing to do. But those are huge economic drivers and what's going on and what you can see in the return in sales tax. I mean, the last a community I worked at when I was early in my career, my best friend ran a significant automotive group. And I would be on the phone with them all the time, like, hey, where are you at? What are your monthly sales? What are you seeing? What's the trending? What are you buying a year from now for purchasing, knowing what the consumer trends are? Like, they had all this information and data, and it always reflected back into the market. So, good question.
Got anything, Adam?
No, it's just, like you said, it all makes sense, you know? Nothing's getting cheaper, and I don't think anything's ever gotten too much cheaper in the history of things anyway. So when you're trying to fill up a tank that just keeps getting bigger and
Yep.
bigger, you need to think about how you're gonna, you know, fill that tank.
Yep.
So
We'll do everything we can to massage the budget to the best that we can, and really try to make sure that it's a good budget. And
Our town is on a different cycle, budget cycle. Do we anticipate, I mean, because village residents obviously live within the village, but also live within the town, so they would be double impacted if town was also to, do we have any foresight on that? How the town budget will play out?
we've reviewed the town budget. I mean, it's budgets also are.
I mean, they obviously are working within the same confines of Monroe County.
They are, but budgeting also is just that. It's not a financial computation. It's what are they budgeting? How are they budgeting? Are they forecasting correctly? Are they budgeting correctly? Are they doing proper capital maintenance and outlay, or are they just pushing it off? I can give you a budget right now that's a 0% tax increase tomorrow.
Right.
But what are you giving up? What aren't you doing? Right? What revenues or expenses are you not accurately portraying, right, or forecasting or looking into? I mean, all budgets do that. I mean, how many times you pick up a budget somewhere, it's like, oh, well, we taxed for $300,000 more than we needed to, and I guess we didn't really look at our projected year ends correctly. Like, we do that really intently and scientifically. A lot of places don't do that. So it's kind of hard to say all that. I mean, right now, the town had, I think, a de minimis 2, 3, 4, 5% increase, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark. I'm not sure that's going to sustain itself into the next year.
Okay.
But, we were just talking earlier, Megan was in contact with her assessor's office, which is our assessor's office. We're looking at equalization rates that are roughly at 60%. Right, so there needs to be a full reval of everything and looked into and have that all done. But these are all things that.
And some of the rate, am I right when I say that some sales tax comes back as property tax credit to people who live outside of the village?
Go ahead. I'm not aware of that. Oh.
If sales tax, again, I guess it's just another stream that would be affected if sales tax was down. If sales tax is being pushed out as payments to municipalities, but it's also being pushed out to property owners in terms of a sales tax or a property tax credit.
Sure.
That's also affecting the
Sure.
the wallet, if
Sure.
you will, of our.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
But yeah, I
Lots
just
of
appreciate.
layers. Lots of
I
layers.
appreciate that, and I completely agree that budgeting based on assuming you're going to get a whole bunch of grants and things just keeps you exposed to unpredictability, which isn't fair to
Yeah.
our residents here.
So we'll keep the board up to date on this stuff and what we're seeing as we go through it. Again, we'll be inputting all the operational requests in and then going through our process of going through every single line meetings and kind of seeing where we're at and, you know, what that delta is that we got to make up and, you know, to have a balanced budget, which is required by law. But those are some really, really big numbers that we're not used to seeing for some of those expenses. And they're going to be challenging to erode at with a small budget like this, right? We don't have, you guys see our budget, they're transparent as they get, they're out there. Every line item, every pair of scissors we buy, it's all there. There's not a lot of wiggle room in there. There really isn't.
And I know we do a really good job of trying to share services wherever we can to be efficient and responsible in that way.
You know, we want to do that and try to find that happy medium, meet the board's expectations. You know, I mean, I have it on our list. I want to make sure we get Christmas decorations for new light poles. I mean, that's on there. It's on the list of stuff. But there's 30 things on this list of, you know, things we've talked about over the years that I tape tabs on and what we're looking at. And it's like, you know, well, this is 30 grand, this is 50 grand. Like, how do you do that and still do all that, but then give a really high tax levy increase, right? Something's got to give, right? So that's something we'll talk about and really look at options as we go through the process together this year. What, you know, what's important to you? What are those priorities?
Well, I know at the
Where do
end
you
of the
wanna do
day, our residents get an extremely great value, real quality product living in our village. So I'm always proud of the quality of life that we have living here.
I agree. We do a good job. And these things happen. I mean, if you look at our budgets over the last 10, 11, 12 years, if you were to average those out, you're probably looking at probably on average a 1% increase on average for those. So they've been really, really small, almost to nothing, right? In these, we've never really had to do something like this. So this is almost, if you're looking at it, instead of being a 1% increase over those last 12 years, if you do the 12% this year, it's like a 2% increase that would have happened every single year. It's just, you know, it's like anything in life. It's that impact. Oh, I see a 10 or I see a 12 or I see a 50% increase. It's a shock to the brain. And I don't blame them, right? It's tough. And we preach that in the business. It's like, you know, instead of doing 0% for 10 years and all of a sudden having a 20%er, you know, do what you're supposed to be doing. Nothing stays constant. Do 2% or 3% a year, right? It's much more palatable than a significant increase in the levy.
And Brian, when you and Megan present the budget, you'll share with us, like, on average, what our average tax bill is increasing by. So
Yep.
we'll have a better
You'll
sense of,
know it.
like, how this is impacting individual families.
I can tell you almost right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at 10%, I think your average bill is what, $1,200, $1,250 right now. So you're looking about $120 increase on a 10%er. So it can be anywhere from $120 to $180 is what we're looking at, anywhere from 10 to 15%. If it's lower, great, but that's ballpark what you might expect to see sitting here today. Outside of, you know, Jill or Megan finding something I don't know about, hidden away a pot of cash. We'll look to see what we can do.
Okay.
You know. And if it's somewhere we think this year is going to be a unique year, maybe there's an opportunity to appropriate some money from somewhere, or maybe do a little less capital work and a less appropriation to get you through that 1 year. Before we go through this process, I don't have the confidence that you won't see something similar next year. We've already been notified a year in advance for certain healthcare issues that are going to be happening that the markets are seeing by our broker. They're going to be in double digits. I mean, that never happens. They never tell us before the June board meeting. They called Megan 3 days into the current, what they call medical year, or the current calendar year, which medical insurance runs on a calendar year. I mean, I think it was 10 days into January. Hey, Megan, we're seeing this now. You just start preparing. And that's not counting for 24, 25. That's counting for beyond. So it's,
All right.
sorry. I just thought it's an important conversation. I know we've all had chatted about it individually a little bit, but it's important that we talk about it and just understand it's coming. It's nothing you've done. It's nothing we've done. I think we're all great financial stewards with the public's trust in their money. I don't. It doesn't bother me a bit. It still doesn't make it any more easy to take, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, we may have some funky new just. Hey, this will get you an extra 10 grand. I mean, if there's ever a time to consider it, now's the time, right? But I would expect to see some amendments to most of the fee structures that we have in an effort to, A, get those in line, and B, do something that, you know, those fee structures are generally, and permits and so forth, are only helping the person, the applicant, or whoever's needing them or using them, right? So if you were going to increase them, I'd rather do that. Since you're using them, you should pay for those services. versus everyone subsidizing that through a tax levy increase. So we're going to be looking at that. You know, maybe we give like donkey rides on Saturdays in the village for $10. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Mules.
Mules.
We'll figure something out.
We appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's really good. We provide a lot of services to our residents, so
You do.
it's good stuff. All right, we good to move on? Yes? Okay. Number 3, the boardroom remodel.
All right. So I know we've, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't want this to be a long conversation. It doesn't need to be. But we really gotta, if we're gonna do some, I think even with the budget that's going on in scope, I think we should kind of bring this into a more reality-driven remodel. But I think it deserves some attention. But wanted to talk about that because between February and March is the time where we need to do some work through here and then plan the purchase of the materials that we need prior to the start date. But it's going to be something where, hey, the board meeting, like tonight, ends at 8 o'clock. The crews come in at Tuesday morning, and they have 2 weeks plus before the next board meeting to get the work done. So you guys aren't doing your meetings in a conference room or so forth. But, I was thinking, if we get some new furniture in here and paint the walls and get some carpet, some new furniture so you're not sitting on what I'm sitting on right now, my back's killing me, and make sure the audio works really well. I think that'd be a really, really great start. You can always do something later. I did want to ask and talk to you guys about the dais that you have. I mean, this is your workspace. Is this something that you'd want to keep or do something like we can get those nice rounded, I can show them, but chairs, the desk that I have. And if that's the case, and if you did, do you want to, if you're going to keep this, then we'll keep it. If not, did you want to keep an elevated, that you see there, an elevated podium or not? So that's really what I want to know. And then if you agree with that kind of scope, we can always make other amendments later. But I don't think we got to go too crazy on this. But, a nice refresh and a nice workspace, I think's warranted at this point. I was just peeling the cloth off my seats earlier before I sat down.
That's special.
So I just want to get your thoughts on that so we can get this planned and get it done for you guys.
All right, anyone want to kick off a little discussion?
You got your previous comments. We're going to make it professional, use nice blacks and leathers and tans and those types of things, and we'll do that. But go ahead.
So what's the specific question then, though?
I'm really just looking at do you want to move forward with that? And if so, the scope that I provided, is that something that's agreeable to you? And then if you do want to move forward, I just asked a specific question about the desk or dais that you're currently sitting at. Is that something you'd like to keep? Or is that something you would like to, we can buy a new dais and, put them together and in a more rounded area or whatever and do that. So I need to know that before we go forward. So if we're going to do that, we buy it, it matches, it flows with what we're doing. So those are the thoughts that I'd like for you guys to consider.
Anyone want to go? Or I can go for, go ahead, Trustee Briggs.
I pulled out my notes from May, and this was a letter I sent to the board at that time. And it's like, I fully support technology, carpet, paint, and new board chairs. I like the oak. And then it's like, I don't see the need to take out the 2 corner closets. And I met with Manager White, so probably earlier in May, to help understand the village's needs for a new boardroom reconfiguration that could not and were not meeting the needs of the zoning board, planning board with this current room. And at that time, you were explained that we are meeting the needs, so the configuration here works fine. It's a want to change, not we don't need to change it. And the whole concept that was presented is a think tank, an innovation space. It's really exciting, but to me, I always thought it was a mismatch to a government workspace and the government meetings, because we're not interactive, we're not collaborative. The space that was presented with the new, furniture and the new this, then it's like it's never matched the function, I believe, of government. So I don't see it as a need to redo the whole room. And then again, I mentioned, by the way, we've raised taxes for the first time in 3 years, and we just heard we're going to be raising taxes significantly. We also had, in May, a $40,000 unbudgeted personnel expense that we threw in there then. You know, so I am all for technology, carpet, paint, leaving the trim, and new board chairs. I also remember the new configuration really limited as many chairs out there. And the final configuration that we looked at in May was 12 to 18 chairs in the audience, and this is 40. And we know quite often we need all 40 of those. Some of the pros of the new chairs were they were easier to move. So I'm thinking maybe we put casters on these, you know, or some way, or move them out a little bit. I think we can use our existing big pieces of furniture. And I guess overall, I think this room is pretty dignified and respectful of the functions that take place in here. And it's really classy, classier than what we'd be going to. You know, I spent a lot of time raising kids in school environments and universities and labs, YMCAs. I don't see that as a fit for here. So, new chairs, keep all this gorgeous furniture. But yeah,
Are you in favor of keeping these chairs?
absolutely.
Okay.
And it functions. It absolutely functions for what we need it to do with our boards, with our publics, with our zonings, with our workshops. And we have other spaces within this building if it needs to be more intimate. And we also have a space at FMC. That's a very large workspace if we needed to do some workspaces there, which is quite nice and fairly newish, you know, and that can be a medium size or a large workspace that holds a lot of people. So that's where I feel. I think this is, you know, we're celebrating our 200th year this summer. So I think this is classy and fits. And that was just a recap of the letter.
Thank you.
But I still feel the same way.
All right. Going down this way?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. One of the things I kind of do wish, though, like, is I wish like it'd be nice if we could. I feel like I have to go like this, if you know we're trying to have a conversation. So that's like I hear what you're saying with the classy thing. So I don't want to necessarily disagree with that aspect of it, but it'd be great if we could find a way to like talk or look more at each other when we're talking. Up here, it feels like we're having a conversation together. So that's kind of that's where I kind of sit on that. No pun intended.
I think we're having a great conversation. Quite often our board meetings, we don't have conversations, even at our work sessions, amongst us, you know, but tonight's conversation is great.
Right. Well, and part of me, it sounds like, is some of that because of how it's set up, right? You know. Right.
Yes.
I don't know if, you know, would that change that? I'm not sure about the dais thing, but I mean, you know, I'm always the one who, for a while there, kept trying to push back on the trustee thing. I'm a little bit more informal with my approach to government.
While we're up here, it's like you can be friendly, but we have been elected to make challenging, difficult decisions over a $7 million budget that will affect people's lives, their investments, their homes. And if you need a foot to be elevated for that hour, hour and a half, that you are actually in a position to be making these decisions for our residents. I think with government and democracy, those 12 inches are okay for the couple, you know, that we're here. I mean, to represent all of our residents spend their money, have impacts on their business, their livelihood, their happens. You know, so to me, the respect that government has and the decisions that we were elected to do while we're here in this role for this hour and a half or 2 hours, respect it. And I think this is a respectful situation for that. You know, and I think democracy and government and representing your community, it deserves some respect for that hour and a half.
I get that. I think the flip side is with a democracy, you're of the people. So raising yourself up is sort of saying, we're kind of the people, but we're a little bit separate of the people.
We're elected to be here for that hour and a half and to make those decisions. And we obviously see it very differently.
Yeah.
So when we're down there talking with people and having workshops, sure, but when you're doing the business.
Well, and that's what I think, like, without the dais then too, if we really need this whole space, and sometimes when we have the workshops, it's easier if the table or whatever you're trying to work on is in the middle so everybody can look and stand around it. And I think without the dais, it becomes more flexible.
I think we've had meetings where we've brought in furniture. Yeah. When we did the joint OSED meetings and things like that, where we've all sat down together and things like that. That works. And some of the workshops we have, we're sitting with the audience and someone's presenting to all of us and the community at the same time. We've had workshops like that too. A couple recently where nobody was up here. We were just using the room.
Well, I think in that respect, when we're talking about the dais and this whole elevated situation, I feel like this isn't just our room to do, the work, the work of the board. I think it's a multi-purpose room that is utilized by a lot of different boards. And I agree with Adam that if we have a dais, I'm not a huge fan of being up here a little bit higher. I'm fairly indifferent about it, honestly, but I feel like for the use of the room and the flexibility of the space, if we weren't up here, if we do have the opportunity to have a workshop or something in here, if we're having furniture that is a little bit more mobile and flexible, we can really utilize the entirety of the space. If we do have a workshop or if someone else is hosting some kind of meeting or event or something else that's happening down the road, I feel like a more flexible space. That is what I'd like to see. I am not super picky about colors or furniture. I just want them to be comfortable and functional and welcoming. So it's not like to me, this feels like an us and them situation. Whereas if we were down, even if we were still on like a dais or like a separate curved table situation, I think the respect is still there. I think that comes with how we carry ourselves and how we do our business. I can also read if I can open my phone. Did anyone else want to, Emily, guess them before I read what Julie sent?
It's fun to dream and have these visions of what something could be. I just think on the heels of our tax increase conversation, it's not, obviously it doesn't feel super comfortable to say we'd like to do this. It just doesn't feel right. I do value the aesthetic of a room that you walk into, and you certainly want to make our residents feel comfortable when they come. I don't necessarily think that this space isn't comfortable or welcoming. I think it's a little dated. I mean, I think that it could use a little umph. I think a lot of times that people feel comfortable most because of the way someone makes you feel comfortable, like the interactions that you have with our residents when they come in and the way we, interact and speak and whatnot. So, but the rug is, it's bad.
That's the best part of the room.
You know, just, I think rug alone would improve this space quite a bit. I think, I agree with Trustee Briggs, just kind of freshening up the paint. I particularly love the oak. I think that the quality of this furniture is like none other that you're ever going to see.
Right.
You can't even get your hands on this stuff anymore. I mean, it's kind of amazing. So, you know, finding a little balance between, you know, like a little hybrid of like old, right? Keeping some of the old, but also like freshening up with some more nicer carpet and some paint. I mean, these chairs,
I'm not giving that discretion. We're getting new chairs. These things are terrible.
well, these chairs,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Oh, yeah, you'll get nice new chairs, and they'll be
I
lifted,
think
so
we
you can
all agree
get
that
them
these
higher.
chairs are
and-
really
Yeah, we'll buy some good
very
quality stuff.
uncomfortable.
But you're right, they need to be comfortable.
I mean, we're all sitting on,
My back's killing me.
I don't think the public probably knows, but we're all sitting on
pillows.
We're all sitting on cushions.
cushions, because
Yeah.
it's not,
An
it's not the
assortment of
right
cushions.
height. So I have a conservative lens on this, but I do think we could do a nice job for, you know, a conservative amount. Just doesn't feel right to, and I'm not even quite certain that the project with the modular sense to it really, if the board isn't really like, this is great, like I can't say that, you know, if we all don't agree that this modular kind of idea or reconfiguration doesn't feel good on all of our ends, I don't think it's the right decision. We all have to work here,
Right.
you know? So I don't think we quite figured out, and not to say that there isn't something that could improve the furniture in here, I think there probably is. I don't think that we have that figured out here. And so, you know, in the meantime, and especially with the budget forecast, I think that it's completely reasonable to say, let's freshen this place up a little bit, but not at the extent we sort of were kind of going that road that we were originally kind of going down, if that makes any sense. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Clear as mud?
Yes, clear,
No, that
no,
was
it's
good.
clear to me.
Okay.
No, I agree with the budget forecasting and everything. I feel like a freshen
Yeah,
would be
I
good.
mean,
I don't
it's
think we need to reinvent the
responsible.
wheel. Yeah.
We could use
I
that.
tell you, artwork could really be, you know, there's
Right?
some more color, but you've got.
Liana, what do you think? You're in school, you're in,
Yeah, Leanna, what do you got?
she's got probably opinions about furniture and workspace
Oh,
being
yeah.
a student.
Well, I don't know. I think both schools of thought can be true. Like, I obviously value like traditional aspects, like how we're celebrating like our 200th year. So I definitely appreciate that, but definitely valuing functionality and stuff like that, maybe making this space more usable, but definitely since like the budget and how we're expecting like a more difficult year, maybe like how you said, like freshening up the place, and maybe further down the road, maybe making this space more functional and stuff like that.
But it is functional.
Yes. All right, thank you so much for sharing. We good if I read?
Our youth are gonna take the future, our future's gonna be okay.
Yeah, it'll be good, it'll be fine. I can go ahead and read what Mayor Domerat sent regarding the boardroom. So I'm just gonna read the email, I guess. My thoughts about the boardroom: getting rid of the platform with some type of tables that can be rearranged depending on the meeting needs, comfortable chairs that can roll for the tables, stationary chairs for attendees, new carpet and paint. She does not care what color as long as it's not orange. And I concur, not orange. Fixing the sound, what?
Did somebody ever bring up orange?
No, I think that's just like, apparently
Oh,
that's a
okay.
hard stop. I like the color palette. Yeah. And orange seems a lot for me too. But fix the sound and video so that we can properly hold meetings, that we can include participants via Zoom or some other type of meeting software. And that is from Mayor Domeratz. I agree with the freshen up, being conservative with what we want, like, you know, champagne taste beer budget. Yeah. Any more to add?
when we, and I mean, I agree, I think one of the things we all agreed on the last time we talked about the design was the trim and keeping the wood and seeing the grain. When we were talking about that, are we talking about refinishing those or just? Because that's the other thing, is like, even if we want to like bring a little something to the table here, you could like sand it, redo something. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I guess that's my other thing is, once we change the color in here, it'd be interesting to see what the green on those chairs
Becomes?
looks like. So,
Reupholstering and refinishing are two different.
Worst thing in the room are those chairs.
I love those chairs.
I am with Emily. I do not like the chairs. All right. Do we have anything more to talk about with the room for now? So
Brian has like very little direction right
Yeah,
now.
no, mine does not
We're
have
saying
very much
like,
direction.
so we're saying paint, we're saying carpet,
yep,
we're saying get the tech down.
yeah.
Yep.
I wanna make sure that you guys
Chairs.
have, so up there, all those seats, I wanna make sure there's like a little flip-up thing where you guys can plug in your phone, plug in your computer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Plug in different.
That'd be great.
Do, hook your hookup so that it goes in next to here, like, there needs to be some technological things
Yes.
that you guys have all
Yep.
Yeah.
your ability to operate. Nobody operates really with paper, but you need to have that to plug in and do your stuff, so we're gonna do that. Kinda similar what we did in the conference rooms, but a little bit better, nicer. You all should have that at your spots. Get all new chairs and furniture, replace probably these or something, but, we wanna just leave the chairs for now. We can always buy chairs later if it comes to somewhere, hey, it's really bad or doesn't work. It's an easy, hey, get rid of those, the new ones come in tomorrow, we'll try that.
That works.
But I agree with Emily that I don't think the vision we have is where we really want to go. None of us are crazy about it. So why don't the things that we all can agree on is the paint, technology, carpet, new chairs up here. And I think we're out of agreement once we go a
Yeah.
little further than that.
Are you in
Yeah.
agreement with the color palette that they presented, so that we could at least go off of like the carpet in here?
I'm good with the color palette.
That's what I'm just saying, it's like, I feel like those chairs will be very interesting after that color palette, but I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
What'd that?
What'd you say?
They made a number of colors that are in that style that we can maybe, if you want a little different or something like that, we can find something nice.
And there's so much of the yellow that whatever you add to it, it's always going to match because it's so dominant anyway. Between the wood and the wood and the wood, you could put anything with it. It's still going to.
Right.
Brian, could you
Right.
reupholster the chairs? Yeah,
that's the only thing, yeah.
okay.
Yep.
The chairs are expensive, like, I think if you bought 40 chairs out here, the time you do the ganging and everything you want, you could spend $25,000 on chairs.
Right.
And don't you think, though, that for most, like, on average, how many chairs do we need for most meetings? 20?
No,
We
I
need
think we've used them all at certain times. I've only been here
But for
2
most
years.
meetings?
But for most meetings,
Like 20?
I feel like 20 to 25 is like most meetings.
I don't
And
like
if
the
we
chairs
have-
they proposed at all.
Yeah.
Maybe see, now we're into all the things we don't agree about.
Yeah.
But let's just stick with what we can, be conservative, be frugal.
Well, the tricky
Get what we're
part,
doing.
Trustee Briggs, is picking out a rug to match chairs we don't like. That's the hard part, like, because then we're really limited to the carpet that we choose.
Brian is suggesting taking what's in the hallway and the rest of it and
Oh.
just bringing it straight in.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
So,
didn't
so
hear
we
that.
know what the carpet's kind of going to be
Got
like.
it,
It's gray, it can go with
Right.
anything.
got
Right.
it, got it, got it, got it, okay. Okay,
And it's cheap enough where you guys hate it in 5 years, or you spill your coffee for the 100th time, or rip it up for the new stuff. Like, it's not too bad.
Coffee.
I'll
All
take extra note as I walk out of the room tonight on the carpet, about the carpet.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the carpet.
That same carpet, but it's a little bit darker, a little darker gray or whatever.
And it gives the whole building nice consistency.
Yep.
Really high quality commercial carpet.
All right. All right. So we like,
Yeah.
you feel like you have somewhere to go with this? Okay.
Bulldoze it, start over.
Set it on fire. Cool.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes. Sorry that was kind of convoluted.
We'll get that planned, and I'll let you know, but we're gonna try to do it all within like a 2-week window where
Fantastic.
when you guys leave one day and come back to us and it's done.
Solid.
Great, thank you.
All right. Onward. So we're going to talk about the special event application. This is just going to be a preliminary discussion talking about updates to the event application and what else is going on with that.
Yep. So yeah, we're still working with staff, but in the end of the day, it's it's capturing all the general information that we capture internally now. Now you'll actually get to see everything and have those details in front of you, which you should have. And it tries to capture most of those things and types of events that we're going to do. The big thing with some of this stuff is, it captures, the types of equipment they're going to need. Are they requesting certain materials from the village to assist in their event or festival, insurance, those types of things. So fairly straightforward. The big thing with this is your indemnities. I mean, I'm glad to have it finally documented and done, and I think this does do that. There's an application fee, I think in here, $100 or $200 or something, but some of the things that we've been doing in the past, and this has come up in the last couple of years, is where, costs associated with these types of things. They're very expensive things to do. They take up a lot of time. We do a good job with it, but they take up a lot of work. And it's something for you guys, you don't have to figure this out tonight or whatever, just start to chew on it and really think about it is, what do we charge for these types of things? Like right now, we've been essentially for charges, we would do anything that's like overtime related. So say you were doing an event and it required public works overtime, or it required code enforcement or building inspection to look at tents or to inspect fire safety things for food trucks, right? And that event was going on Saturday. Like if we had to call people in, we would charge back those costs, and we've done that for years, right? For whatever those are, anything that we could do, whether it be in reason or not, anything we could do during like a Monday through Friday, 7 to 3:30 type of thing, we would just do it, right? So whether it be cutting down streets and cleaning up the village or whatever the case may be, right? And that's what we've done. The big thing that we do, law enforcement and police stuff right now is not charged back at all. And as you know, that's a very expensive commodity, and the demands on that are only getting more, right? I mean, we all just saw the stuff going on in New Orleans, right? And barricading the streets off and having people there. And that's not to bring that to this level, but, we are a festival town. But the types of events and the things that we do far exceed the resources that we have internally. So we have great working relationships with our mutual aid partners, whether it be fire departments, sheriff's offices, FBI, RPD, all those things. But they are significant asks and requests. And is it something where the board might want to consider charging back for those police-related charges associated with that? I mean, we may spend $30,000 a year in overtime just for events and those types of things in a given year. And it's one of those things. It's something you just have to really think about. You don't want to make it to the point where it's, because you're going to hear it. Well, it makes it too expensive to hold an event, right? It's going to cost me $5,000 for law enforcement for the evening, right, or for the weekend or whatever that event may be. But the cost to do these things, and in this event, we're not charging for things like, you guys give authorization to take over the entire village for some of these events, right? Oh, you get the whole village, do what you want, set up parking lots, streets, right? It's significant. We're going to give you all 4 parking spots in Lithbridge Lane East for the weekend. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. We're just talking this stuff out. You give a lot to these applicants to do these things. But they are resource centric. They do require time and energy. There's always things that are coming up last minute. There's always things that we're always trying to do and mitigate and determine. And we want to continue to do that. but recognize there is a significant cost component, resource component to doing some of these things. And it's just something I think we should talk about as we do this. Will there be charges for those types of things? Because if there are, we want to be upfront about what that might look like. Okay? But they're really, you know,
Brian,
they're getting,
this is a
the law
draft.
enforcement side's getting, it's a draft. We're meeting again internally to talk about some of this stuff, make sure we capture most of it, and what we want to do. But we've talked internally before. We'll keep doing it, but I want to get some of your feedback tonight, and I don't expect you to have a lot tonight. We can chat again, and we would do this regardless. But I can't implement fees without your authorization to do that.
I think anytime communication is improved between the village government, right, and our partnerships with the community, our community partnerships, and making sure that these events are, that we're able to continue having them, and obviously communication is really important. So if this is a tool that would help that communication piece, I definitely support that.
It will. It just clarifies, you know, all the things that we take for granted that we do, and we know it puts it all in there. And for a lot of these things are fillable. If you're doing the same event the following year, you just kind of take your same application, update it, and you're there, right? So it's not a big lift or anything. And a lot of this is just verbiage in there. But having something that can document it, that we can give out to anybody. Oh, you want to do a 5K for the weekend? Well, this is our process. This is what's going on. Take it, review it, and if you're interested, submit an application for a review. Because once we get these things, you know, they go through all the department heads and they make comments, and then we go meet and talk about, you know, the nuances. What about this? Did you think about that? They do take quite some time, and there should be an application fee associated with these. I mean, somebody wants to do a marathon here next summer, and we have probably met 3 times to do something like this and end in the village. But it's like, well, did you think about that? Well, we're good at this because we do it all the time. Before you know it, we're kind of organizing their event for them and how they should go about doing it, and what about this, and maybe you should call them. And so it takes a thing. We probably get 30 or 40 requests a year for whether it be a 5K, can I do this, can I do that, whatever. And we generally try to say, if you're going to do it, try to do something where it doesn't have a lot of impact on us. So keep all your runners on the sidewalk, or try to use the loop between, you know, Parenton Park and, you know, near Lipbridge Lane East, and then end there or something like that. You know, we do that all the time, and you don't even see them really, right? Just to reduce the impact. You know, the residents don't want streets shut down all the time. They want to be able to come in here and do the things they want to do without having a lot of nuance. But you still want to, you know, I'm glad that people want to come here, do events. It's a beautiful place. We take care of it.
So Brian, your plan then is to talk to department heads about this, and then what would be next steps? You'll refine it from there,
We'll
and
refine
then
it.
you'll bring it back to us?
Yes. But
And
take
then
take some time and look at it.
Okay,
Just
I was
review
just
it. And
gonna
just
say,
kind of,
we can
if
give
you have
you
any
feedback.
comments, if you have some feedback, if you
Okay.
just want to email me your comments or feedback, or whatever, feel free to give me a call. But yeah, we just want to start working on this and get this massage and kind of get it implemented for the spring, so it's ready to go for applicants and some of the events and stuff that's going to be coming up.
Sounds good.
But the big thing is really thinking about, you know, and it's going to have a budgetary impact. You know, think about, do you want to start charging for certain personnel, whether it be on duty, off duty, police services? I think is really the big one. I mean, it's a very, very expensive commodity, but it's expensive. There's nothing inexpensive about law enforcement. I mean, it really is. So it's trying to find that balance of what that might look like, or maybe there's some flat rate fees or whatever the case may be. But
Can you just, I did actually read through, so I would be ready to talk tonight and had questions. My first question is, what is different here that you're proposing that is new from how we've done things in the past?
all of it, because we don't have an application process.
So paying the fee, because there's a $50 fee unless you're, and then it goes up to like a $100 fee if you're going to be in the downtown business improvement district?
So we've never really charged fees for this type of stuff and for review. I think those are even
Okay.
light, in my opinion. There's a significant lift internally to do these things. There's a lot of meetings and whatever, and we can talk about that, whatever that is. I mean, but before it's generally these things have, I've inherited a lot of these events. They come up, they do this, whatever. It's a nice place to document everything, to know what's going on, to make sure we capture all the needs. And it's really becoming prevalent more now because there's always this last minute, oh, I need this. Oh, that's not what we agreed to, right? This he said, she said thing, which seems to be happening more than it should. And things just kind of get convoluted and complicated, and we make them work on the fly, but it shouldn't have to be that way all the time. That's really becoming more of the norm than the exception to a lot of things that are happening. And things are fluid. Like these events there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of things. You're going to have that regardless, but we'd like to minimize that to the best of our ability if we can.
So,
But as far as fees are concerned, we don't have any application fees right now. We just charge back currently for any overtime-related costs associated with, managing a festival or us having an impact of that. And then we've been charging back for like any type of, because fire's free, right? But, we kind of mandate them to come in for these things, right? And we say, hey, you have to have coverage. You got to be here. You got to be quick to respond. We're not calling them in when there's something going on. So they're here. They're doing station duties and so forth. And then over the last 2 or 3 years, they'll buy food to make sure there's 30 volunteers that come in through the weekend or something like that, and we'll feed them and that type of thing. So we'll charge back for those fees as well.
and the applicant will know that in your negotiations, that,
It'll all be here, yep.
so, like, charge back for fire, police, FMC electric, all of that. I guess since we don't necessarily do that now,
Correct.
so I could see maybe tiering it in and saying that FMC technically gives 40 extra hours of overtime for a festival. Can we lock it in at like 20 hours? So whether it goes to 40 or not, it's like they know before they start their festival how much they're going to pay for overtime for electric, how much they're going to pay for overtime for, the fire. Because I've been here 2 years, and there is a lot of discussion about what the village does, but they charge us, what do we charge them on, but we do it all in kind. There is a whole lot of confusion about stuff like that. So I don't have a problem with tightening that up and having rates, but I could see it very easily becoming, thousands and thousands of dollars.
Well, it could, right? But that's a kind of a true cost of some of these, and it's just really recognizing what that is. I mean, by the way, we couldn't give 20 or 40 hours of overtime for anything. I mean, especially since they're organizing as well. But nevertheless, but there's always something that happens. Vendors will blow breakers. They plug in. We're not metering them for the entire event. I mean, those are kind of things that we do. Just saying, hey, we're glad you're here, and it kind of supports festivals, but there's a limit to the point where now it's like, well, I'm here in the change the plug. I have a 3-phase plug. I have a 220 plug. Do this. I mean, this past year we went to Home Depot twice and rewired and put all brand new receptacles in to meet the plug that the vendor had. Like, it's just becoming a thing, and the expectations of it are a thing. And this is not a bad thing. It's just
Right,
important
it's
to
a thing
talk
that
about
needs
it.
to get tightened
It's
up.
not so much these festivals have grown into much more than just basic festivals. They require a lot of technology and a lot of resources, and there's a cost to doing that. I'm bringing people in. I'm mandating they work overtime. They're coming in off their off hours to help out, and they still want to volunteer, and certain employees do. But to your point, maybe phasing it in, and again, just starting that discussion on it. No one's going to want to
Right.
pay for these types of things, and I get it, especially when they haven't been for so long. But I think there's a happy medium to be had, and I think the expectations are getting higher, and the demands on us are getting higher, and I think that we need to kind of capture that a little bit.
So hypothetically, in the past and going future, exactly right here, replacement fee. So this particular vendor, Marisol's Pizza, our guys go to Home Depot, fix it all up so it can plug in and it's ready to go, and it's on a very, we have to go back to Home Depot twice. Who's paying for the actual things?
I think
mean,
most of the time we eat those costs, or sometimes we may charge back the receptacle cost or whatever.
Would you give it to the festival, or do you give it to the specific vendor? I mean, who would you charge back those things to? This
think
is the
generally-
future piece.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, in the end, we shouldn't be doing that. The infrastructure we have is the infrastructure we have. You shouldn't be coming here saying, well, gee, I want to work here, but you got to make your place compatible to me. That's not how that's supposed to be working. I mean, this is the infrastructure, this is what we offer. These are the types of hookups that they have. The vendors and the applicants need to make sure that the people they're working with and organizing with can work within the confines of the venue that you provided them.
Now I just
Yeah,
had
yeah,
another
yeah, yeah.
thought. That might be helpful for, like Canal Days, when they're trying to get their vendors in here, say, you know, that we've got 40 plugs and this is the type, you know, adjust accordingly. Another better communication
Like a little
piece.
spec sheet or something like that.
Yeah, so we can avoid that in the future, because it is a panic situation right there
Yeah.
at the end. And that made me think about, I know last year for a couple festivals, mysteriously, who brought in, I don't know who paid for it, Verizon brought in boosters for the festivals. So we could actually have self-service and the vendors could run their squares and things like that. Awesome to have those. Is there a cost to that?
Verizon did that for their own, by themselves. They did not charge for that. But Verizon's also looking at putting up a more permanent structure on our FMC property. Those negotiations are still ongoing. But, so I don't think there'll be the need for a cell on wheels.
I had cow, and I was gonna
Cow,
make a joke. Is
yeah.
it a pig or a cow?
It's a
'Cause I
cow.
got cow. I
It's a
thought
cow.
those were cows.
Then that's just for Verizon. Now, whether that monopole will be permitted to have other suppliers like Sprints and T-Mobiles of the world, that remains to be seen. That's in discussion as well, so we can provide a little more access and service.
Do we arrange that, or does the festival
You can arrange
organizers?
anything. I mean, it'll be a pull up year round. It just stays up. It'll be just like we have at Summit Street, but a little bit smaller.
I realize that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just don't
sorry.
know when it's going to actually get built. I'm thinking maybe this season.
If
we
it happens,
might-
it'll happen sometime probably in the next 3, 4, 5 months. That'll be
Oh.
looking at if we come to terms and make everything work.
Now, some of the inspections, the food inspections and everything, there was $60 per vendor to have them inspected, like for the food, or $75 per hour. Who does that? Is that something Mark has to go around and inspect? I'm just thinking like Canal Days. I mean, they have food trucks everywhere.
Yeah, they all
Each
have to
one
be
of those-
inspected, and
by Mark.
and right now we've just been charging by the hourly rates of what it costs for him to be there.
Okay.
But yeah, it has to be done. It's required by Department of Health and Code to do that.
So we would bill back to the festival and just say it'll
The
take.
festival applicant, correct?
Yeah, and they know that, or they'll know that all up front. Just keep all
That's what
that.
we've always done. Yep, they know
Okay.
that. Yep.
That's been billed though in the past, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, that's not new.
Yeah, I mean, I can't bring him in on a weekend and say,
No.
oh, by the way, come on in and drive in and do it for free, and nor should the taxpayer have to subsidize that either,
No.
so.
On the plus side, for folks who are worried about block parties, we will notice there is an exception for certain
Yeah,
things.
I mean, the
there.
block parties are de minimis, but you want to
Yeah.
encourage that community gathering and so forth. And
Right.
that's all we're doing is dropping off a
Couple barriers.
a barrier. I mean, that's nothing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't, we don't do anything for that. We're not out there sweeping and putting new lights up and doing all those other
And
things.
they don't have a $50 application
Right,
fee for.
so that's what I mean,
it.
all of
We
that,
just
all of
wanna know
that
about
stuff,
it. It's
please just
there.
keep doing it, don't worry about it.
It's documented, the hold harmless is in there. So like, by the way, you asked for this, but when somebody comes and runs through the barricade, you want to make sure there's no lawsuits and stuff like that too. So there's always an organizer of these types of parties. Will it happen anyway? Sure. There'll be a lawsuit for anything, but you get what I'm saying. It's just trying to do it a little more of a professional way.
I was trying to keep this light, man.
Yeah. Well, these are tough topics, but I mean, so yeah, I mean, there's nothing bad with this, and we can determine what, if any, of those fees look like at a later date and stuff like that. But this is kind of the concept we're looking at. I do want to clean it up, and I know there's gonna be other things that we haven't thought about, or every time I pick this up and I go talk to someone, oh, what about this? And there's a lot of, oh, what about that type stuff, and it's hard
Brian,
to
do you
capture
have
everything.
an end, like a completion date for this in mind, like that you would like to
I
get this
think by,
no
I think
later
by, I
than-
think in the next month, we should be able to wrap this up, no problem,
Okay.
and meet one more time and be done with it, and get it out there, and we'll get it uploaded on the website, and people can download it. And I wanna make it fillable and easy to use. I don't want handwritten Bic pen ones that I can't read, so, we wanna do it right. And that way they can upload everything, upload their insurance, everything's there. Then we'll build an internal process for departmental review, where people go through there and check it off and make sure they're looking at everything from their lens.
Is this something that we've also been, that we have been, or that we need to be just touching base with John on, just in terms of any, legal?
He's aware of it, and we'll review it as well,
Okay, great.
of course.
Couple more questions.
Sure.
A lot of the festivals have tents, and I know how they attach the tent. There's going to be a tent fee, and then I've also heard there's a repair fee. Because some of the tents, that's the same, and the
So that-
festival organizers are
Yeah,
aware
so
of this.
right now, we've been charging a flat fee. The fee now is going to be, should you continue to permit stakes in the ground, which I would like to talk to you about that. I don't think that we should be permitting 300 stake spikes going into pavement 3 feet in the ground every year. It's very expensive infrastructure. It's highly invasive. It damages the hell out of everything. There's great risk of hitting infrastructure and primary in the ground. It's one of those things I fought 10 years ago and lost with a former board. We paved it, and then a month later, they're driving 300 stakes into the ground. I just don't think that should be happening, and I know there's the reason why they do that versus the weights is because the
cement,
cost
yeah.
difference, right? I mean, you got to truck all those concrete blocks in and weight them down. I mean, I get it, but I'm not so sure that's really our problem with stuff like that. But it's something for you guys to consider and talk about. We'll keep doing it if you want to, but it's a significant thing to say you're going to go drive 300 or 400 stakes into the ground for an event into
Can you
public
get us more
infrastructure.
information on that? Like the cost difference by, like if we, as a village, decide to not allow tents to do that, what's the cost that it would bring up? Or what's the cost to repair? Just so we have a better educated decision.
Oh, the repair, we bring somebody in, they got to literally go through there, pack stone and mix by hand, push it all down each one of those, and then seal it all up. And right now, we haven't been charging the proper amount. We've been doing this de minimis $350 fee, and it'll probably be much more than that. I mean, think about what you're repairing and what you're doing.
Well, and like you're saying, if say somebody on a very unlucky day sends that right through a data line, uh-oh.
That's a big uh-oh.
Just so we know what the
Yes.
current fee is and what it would go up to if we did a full charge. And the other thing I thought of, and then I'll be done, but I do have a lot of other questions. Signs only say that they have to come down the next day. How far in advance can they put up signs? Because that, or is that something you need to address? Because sometimes those signs go up a long time before the event. And I know we have other signs where it's like 30 days before the event or 15 days before the event is when you can start plastering signs.
So, no, for political signs, that's per code and per law. We don't permit signs in the village for races or festivals or anything. The only places those are done is per code, which you have adopted, is for banners at the Fairport Brewing Company gate and the Village Inn. That's the only place that banners are permitted in the village as of right now.
Good to know.
Yep.
I'm just
And
seeing
it's gonna
signs
be
going
and it's
everywhere.
It's gonna be in your code for review. Jill and I were talking about that today to make sure that's brought up, and what do you guys want to do for signage and things like that in the future for promotions and stuff like that. But that's the only place that they're actually out
Okay.
in the village. Otherwise, it would be littered all over the place. It's always been that way.
I did not know that, but it's like, oh, we don't want signs everywhere.
All right. So that was a really good preliminary discussion. We covered a lot of things in there. Anything, excuse me, anything else to add? No, I think this is good stuff to look at and to
Yep.
read over, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, upcoming meetings. There's a village board meeting Monday, February 10th at 6 PM. And then the next village board work session will be Monday, February 24th at 6 PM. Both meetings will be held in this room. And with that, we're gonna have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. What else do I have to say about this?
So moved. Oh, second.
Good. Emily?
Mishler's first.
Motion.
Bono Sky.
Okay, all in
Benoski.
favor? Aye. Aye,
Aye.
all right.
Unless you want, Kim's gonna ask about parameters of the police agreement.